Hello to this week's Angela Ray Show. I hope that you all have had a great week and you are ready for this Wednesday wind down edition of the show. To everyone who will be catching the broadcast live tonight, make sure that you go ahead and slide in those comments and let me know how you are weathering this heat wave. At least here in the Southeast, if you are south of Richmond, Virginia, we have definitely had a heat wave. But I guess the folks in Phoenix and Vegas feel like what we're dealing with is nothing. If you are catching this on the replay, as you all always do, make sure that when you chime in those comments, use the hashtag replay to let me know that you are definitely supporting, even when you cannot catch us live. As we always do, we always get the party started here with our Ray of Motivation moment. And for tonight's Ray of Motivation moment, I just want to remind you that you do not have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You know, in the news these days, there's been a lot of debate about some of our fine athletes, those who have decided to prioritize their mental health for their own benefit and putting that before anything else. And yeah, I'm talking about the fabulous Simone Biles. A few weeks ago, it was Naomi Osaka who took some time away from tennis. And while it's good to be a team sport and a team player, it's always so important to make sure that you, as an individual, are okay. And that starts with prioritizing your mental health. So, again, tonight's Ray of Motivation moment, you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Well, I'm really excited about tonight's guest, and that is guest plural. I have always wanted to do something like this as I've watched the main talk show host throughout the years bring on guests that they've worked with in a project. That's always been so exciting to me to see. So tonight, I have part of the cast and the director from the film Through Her Eyes. As you'll recall, last week's Ray of Motivation moment was inspired by the experience from Through Their Eyes. So help me welcome Michael, who plays Otis Jr., my baby boy in the movie Through Her Eyes. Of course, I have my baby daddy on here too, Otis Sr., Mr. Sean Lucky, and the man who had the vision to see this project through, Mr. Trent Lumpkins. Thank you all so much for being here on this evening. It's really exciting to see all of us. You know, we don't have the whole cast, but to see you all. I haven't seen us in this all of us together in quite some time. So I'm going to kick it to you first, Trent, because again, this was your vision. And while it is 2021, I know that the idea and the inspiration for this film came some years ago. So how does it feel to finally have this story shared with the world?
Honestly, I'm still processing it. It's been a long journey, very long journey, and it feels great. It feels really good. As you know, this thing started off as a short film for a graduate thesis project, but it grew into something 10 times, 100 times bigger than we thought it would be. So just seeing it come to fruition, seeing all the lives that it's touched thus far, and how many people have poured into it, it's an amazing feeling.
All right. So Sean, I'm going to go to you. You were part of the film when it was first birth as a short film, and then you came back for part two, but also you picked up the role as a producer as well. What inspired you to step up to the plate and assume some responsibility behind the scenes?
Well, let me just thanks for having me on here, Angela, and it's good to see you, Trent, of course, Michael. This is great. So I want to congratulate each of you for your contributions. So that being said, I'll just say Trent. It all starts with Trent. Trent, 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 Trent. That's it. That's all I can tell you. This brother, the first time I met him, I knew it was something special about him. So, being cast was one thing. And I enjoyed the process, even going to Alabama, filming there, and and ended up filming again in Atlanta. With some of the hurdles that he had to endure, when I just saw that he was trying to put his art out there, I gravitated toward this story, the struggle, and that's how I became part of it and got the EP credit, I guess you would say. So, but it's been a great journey. I'm glad to be a part of this ride with you and of course with Trent. So.
Now, Michael, you came on board when this film was expanded to be made a feature film. During the first version, we didn't know anything about a son, but now we meet Otis Jr. So, would love to hear from you your perspective on what it was like to work on a film that was inspired by actual events.
Well, like Sean said, it all starts with Trent. I actually found the project on Actors Access. I auditioned for it like I would audition for any other project. But what was special was the subject matter, the material. It was the kind of project that you're going to be proud of at the end of the day. It's the kind of story that needs to be told. I remember having a strong conviction that this is the kind of story that needs to be told. So I know that also made, Trent's job a lot easier in getting people to support the film. Everybody was, as enthusiastic, if not more, than I was. And it's funny, I have to mention, I actually auditioned for Otis Sr. I remember the lines that I had. It was Otis Sr. And then when I got to play Otis Jr. and I got to see this character fleshed out and the relationship between the dad, like it couldn't have played out any more perfectly. It couldn't have played out any better.
So, for those of you who may not know, we've been talking about Alabama and then a short film. I just want to give you a little bit of background on the journey. This film was originally a short film, and Trent took the entire cast and crew to Selma, Alabama, as well as Marion, Alabama, to shoot where the story actually took place. It was inspired by actual events of one young lady's plight to integrate a school in Marion, Alabama. And for those of you who are history buffs, you'll recall that Marion, Alabama is also the home to the late Coretta Scott King. It's where she was born. And I know even though that part we did not get to see a lot of that part of what was produced, for me as an actress and getting to go to Alabama and shoot in so many historic locations during that time, like I would not trade that for anything in the world. I remember one day I had a late call and I called Sean and I was like, hey, I'm going to find a bridge. And before he could say, okay, I'll go too, I was like, I'm gone. I'm already like, just meet me at the bottom of the bridge. And so to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, some of the homes that we shot at were definitely historic, and even the historic markers that were out
Mhm.
Selma, as well as the highway, going from Selma to Marion and kind of honoring Jimmy Lee Jackson, and then getting to Marion and shooting at the church where, again, there was so much rich history. I think for me, that was such an inspirational part of what I do as an artist. And I do see we have another castmate backstage. I'm going to call him the preacher man. We're going to try to get him on
Oh,
just a moment as well. I see you, Todd Baker, backstage. So we're going to try to get you on in just a moment as well. For you, Trent, though, as I was just updating our audience on, how we started with part A of this film in Alabama and then having to reshoot. I'm just curious because you pretty much had to start all over. So what gave you the tenacity to continue with the project?
Well, I'll be 100% honest. Like after we lost that footage the first time, because that's heartbreaking. We put literally everything into this project. Um, all the capital, we booked out the locations. Like you said, we had all historic locations. The real life Rosalie, she's actually the second cousin to the late Coretta Scott King, and so her family is still heavily involved in politics. So we had the support of everybody, and for us to lose it just like that, no warning, no anything, it was a huge learning lesson for me, for the crew. I would say for the cast as well, because like y'all have been with me since this journey started. So you saw everything that we went through from the first time until when it grew into the feature that it is today. Um, I would say the thing that kept me going was the people who poured into this, and I have to keep going back to it because honestly, if it wasn't for the support of the city of Marion, the city of Birmingham, the city of Selma, for Sean, because Sean was one of the first people to pour into this film. And he just came out the blue one day and he was like, "Hey man, I want to help you. I want to support this." And so just seeing all these people who believed in this project, it pushed me because I'm like, if they're going all out, I have no choice but to go all out. So it was going to always go to the stars because of everything that we poured into it, all the prayers, all the good energy, and just the willingness to make this happen. I had no doubt that it was going to do what it's doing, and it's going to go even bigger, honestly, than what it is right now. So I would say it was y'all. It was y'all support, y'all belief, because this is the first one out the gate. Like this is the project that literally took me from being a student into a full-fledged film director, from start to finish, from idea to distribution, literally a straight shot. And I couldn't have done it without y'all. And so every time that it comes up, I always say this is a team effort. This was a group effort. It's not just Trent. It's Trent and the actors. It's Trent and Shine. It's Trent and Angela. It's Trent and Mike. It's Trent and Raven. It's the family, and that's how I look at it. So it's the support.
Definitely a family affair. So we already made history tonight. I was telling my guests before we went live, I was like, I've never had three guests on the screen live. So we're going to see what happens when we bring the preacher man on board. Let's see how, okay, here we go. Welcome, preacher man. So awesome to have you on board tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't expect it, but thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Todd, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
What's going on, Reverend?
All right, man.
Todd, how's it going, man? How's it going?
Going well, fellas. So just here in South Carolina with the family for a little bit. The kids are out at the pool here, so I'm out. That's where I am right now.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes,
I
indeed.
thought
But
that looked like a lounge chair for a minute. I was like, is
yeah,
it a lounge chair he's doing?
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm in. That's what I'm in. But being part of the film, I can remember driving to Atlanta to audition. Well, before that, even receiving the sides. And once I read the sides, I was like, "Oh man, this movie is right on point. It's time for this again, for this message." And I went into the audition and said a prayer, and that was it. And when Trent let me know I got the part, I was like, yes, like every actor. But uh, like many of you have said, being in Selma and Marion and just walking in the footsteps of our ancestors and understanding uh, the jeopardy that they put themselves in so that we could be in the space we are today, and just being in that pulpit, you know, um, and thinking about who was outside listening, as well as those who were inside. Because as a minister, I knew that the enemy was outside listening because those walls are very small, and it was a place not only for of refuge, but for communication and understanding and planning for the African American community to advance to where we are today.
Absolutely. I think that the way you put that is just just reminded me, I know I had never been to Selma before, heard so much about it, had never been to Selma. And I remember driving in the day before we started filming, and that drive from Montgomery to Selma, how dark the highway was. And I was like, if it was dark in the 2000s, what was it like in 1955 and 1960 when people walked, with
Yes,
no protection? Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Mhm. Yes, I
definitely
thought that
appreciate.
those were my thoughts exactly. I just couldn't. I was like, they were really brave, very brave, and they
Mm-hmm.
were meant to be in that time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they were meant for that time, like we are meant for these days and this time.
Absolutely. Now, Trent, we've all been kind of talking about our experiences with the film, those of us who were a part of it in the beginning and then as it expanded. But in your own words, how would you, what is the story of Through Her Eyes?
So, at the root, this is a story about a girl, just a young, average teenager girl, who wanted to make a change. And it started with her just wanting to have better radio equipment. Like, she was a kid. She understood what was going on, but at the same time, she wasn't really trying to become a civil rights activist or a key part of it. She just wanted to be a radio host, and she wanted better equipment to practice on. And she knew that this opportunity would give her the resources she needs to actually accomplish her goals. But as she found out, and as we found out, it was way bigger than what she thought it was. She realized that she wasn't just going to the school for her. She was going to the school for all of the other black kids who wanted to do better, for all of the other black people who wanted to advance in the society. And what's really interesting is this film is, I would say, the relationship between the parents and the kids is what makes this film extremely different and unique, because all of the kids are mirroring the beliefs and the objectives of their parents. You see it really blatantly in Richard Carmike, whose father is a blatant racist, but his mother, she wasn't. Well, now mom has passed away, and Richard only has one parent, and he's trying to get his love, he's trying to get his admiration, but the dad is cold. So he believes that in order to get my father's love, I need to act like my father. I need to do what my father does. And he has to grow enough within himself to be like, no, this is wrong. Racism is wrong. What my father is doing is wrong. And that's why in the scene in the park, one of the more graphic scenes, he throws a branch to Rosalie to aid her to get away from his father. We can also see it with Brianna. Her mother is a Southern Belle, the typical, I guess you can say the 1950 mom who just worked at home and didn't supposed to do anything but have the kids. Pretty much a trophy wife. So that's how Brianna was groomed. And you can see that in a relationship with her and Arlo, who is just like her father. She has to find the courage within herself to stand up to him and say, no, this is wrong what you're doing. She's putting her life on the line so all of us can advance. And if you can't see that, then you're not what I need in my life. So she's becoming independent. She's becoming empowered. And Rosalie has the biggest arc of them all. She's coming from shy and timid to this civil rights leader. Because now, because of the acts that she's done, this school is open for other black kids to go. And so this film is, yeah, it's different, and it's designed to give a perspective from what a kid would feel like going through the situation, how it affected her family, how it affected her friends, how it affected her. So
All right, so I want to do a little round robin. Everybody, without giving, so just a reminder, it is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Through Her Eyes is available right now. You can stream it on Amazon Prime as well as iTunes. So make sure you go ahead and reserve your copy and check out the film. But I'm curious from my fellow actors, what is your favorite scene? Sean, I'll go to you first.
Okay. Favorite scene probably has to be um, the scene where Junior and Senior have their standoff. Because I mean, I guess women go through this too, but every man, when he makes the transition from boy to man, has this this happen. whether it's with a parent or a sibling, but there's usually some sort of rift that kind of ushers you into that manhood. And this, we can see the two Otises draw a line in the sand where, again, Otis can no longer be in his house, Otis Jr. And Otis Sr. understands that. So that, to me, that was pivotal, not just for the film, but just for me personally, having to deal with my own father issues. But I can just see where that can probably help other young men, namely Black men, get over that hurdle of trying to transition into manhood. So that was it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Sean, we're going to send you backstage so we can make some room we may have some other people coming. So thanks so much for hanging out. We'll send you backstage right now. So Michael, what was your favorite scene?
I would have to say my favorite scene was the when Otis Jr. and the team and Lady D, they're really sitting around the table together and they're planning the next civil rights march. Because shortly after that scene, Otis Jr. gets the opportunity to introduce his little sister to Lady D. He gets to introduce Rosalie to Lady D. I like that scene because it really made me have to put myself into the shoes and the perspective of being in that time and being under that pressure and really having to organize and put that kind of civil rights march together. While we were working on this scene, I remember Trent was telling us that the stakes had to be a little bit higher. He wanted to see more energy from us because one thing that you don't really think about is that back then you could literally die or you could be beaten. Like you were really putting yourself at risk. There was no chance that the cops were going to go easy on you. Like you were really going to a battlefield almost. And I feel that with those higher stakes, it made this scene a lot more potent.
Okay. All right, Preacher Man, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, I'm have to say, is Otis and Otis. When I saw that struggle there in the living room, it was very personal for me because I remember as a teenager pushing that envelope with my dad in the house and us coming very close to that point, and I would have to say that was my favorite. That was my favorite scene in the movie. Mm-hmm.
Trent, do you have a favorite scene?
I honestly don't.
Okay.
Like I think everybody did such an amazing job, and everybody really embodied who these characters were. Yeah, I honestly don't have a favorite scene. I love the whole thing.
Okay. I think that one of my favorite moments, and it's a favorite for a number of reasons, is this tender moment between Otis and May Ann, and then Raven rushing into the living room. And I think that one of the reasons that's one of my favorite scenes is because I feel like it is so typical of life that we have no idea in those moments of calm, in those moments of joy, what is just waiting right around the corner to disrupt the atmosphere. And so it seemed like such this sweet thing. And then all of a sudden, boom, things are different. And I feel like so often that's how life is for all of us, not that something is always bad happening, but just sometimes things can be so great and then something just really comes to disrupt it. And again, I just thought that was so typical. We have a question from one of our very loyal viewers here at the Angela Ray Show. Edwin has a question for us. And the question is actors of color, how does it affect you as you embody these characters in such a difficult time in history? It's a great question, Edwin. Anybody want to take that? You want to take that, Michael?
Yeah, I just want to say that you really have to take the time, and this is when you're on set, when cameras are rolling, and when you're preparing for cameras to roll. You really have to use that time in that moment to remind yourself of what, how severe the stakes were that these characters were going through. Um, you have to take yourself out of where you're at right now, the comfort that we live in, the ease of life that we have. I feel that the preparation really it happened right then in the moment when we're shooting. Of course, the preparation goes ahead of time. You do your research, you do your homework. One of the real life stories that really helped me was the life of Medgar Evers. Um, he was a civil rights activist around that time, and like Martin Luther King, the cops, the FBI, they interfered with his personal life, like they were watching him. You couldn't say you were gonna fight for civil rights, or you were gonna fight for Black people and the right to vote, the right to be treated like humans, without being actually followed and pressured by law enforcement. And it's scary to think at that time that white supremacy and law enforcement were one in one. I feel like just the idea that there's always this pressure of somebody watching you, that's what helped me take the character to that next level.
What about you, Todd?
Well, in preparation for the role of Reverend McDaniel, I looked to the reverends and the clergy of that time, and even now, and looking at their role in as community leaders and leaders of congregations, and in that time, their words, as of as today, they also are very important. I mean, they could literally make or break the spirit of the crowd, of the congregation. And it was, I believe, a time where in preparation, I had to really think about the moment before, as a reverend, I would step into the pulpit.
Yeah.
That time I would have to spend in communion with the God before I stepped before the congregation and opened my mouth. It was a, it was a, it's a position where you really had to give yourself up to the Spirit of God and let Him lead through you and trust Him no matter what the consequences. And in doing that, and in the congregation, not only hearing that courage and seeing it from the pulpit, it 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 just overflowed to them, and that's my belief. Yeah.
Well, you all are definitely, in terms of what you're sharing and how you're sharing it, you're inspiring our audience to see. Joseph says, I'm really excited to see this movie. Your descriptions of your favorite scenes are very enticing. So that is good to hear. I would say for myself, in terms of just how it affected me to play the characters, I think on the one hand, there was definitely a sense of pride knowing that I was able to breathe in a different kind of life to such historical and brave people. I think that, again, going back to being able to be in Selma, and I'll share this story really quickly. For our audience, one of the homes that we were shooting in Selma was the home of a couple who were the host to Dr. King often when he came to Selma. And so there was a point, between takes where we were shooting, and there was an old Life magazine that was open on the coffee table. And I remember Sean, who was on a little bit earlier, who played my husband. He looked in the magazine. He was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "What is it?" He was like, "That couch that Dr. King is sitting on." I was like, "What about it?" He was like, "That's the same couch we're sitting on right now." And I was like, "No way!" And we picked up the magazine, and it just so happened that the woman who, the lady of the house, if you will, she just had that forward thinking. There were a lot of things that she never updated. I mean, there were some things that were updated in that house, but the couch was the same. As we looked at old pictures and things throughout the house, there was a picture of Dr. King sitting on a bed in pajamas, and they still had the pajamas in that house that Dr. King had on in that picture. And I think that somehow, I mean, very most of the time as an actor, you don't have the opportunity to be that entrenched in history. But for me to be that entrenched in literally the steps and the places and the atmosphere where these people were, I felt like I had no other choice but to step up to the challenge. It was for me such an honor to give this new story, the story that hadn't been told, a different story about integration. It was just such an honor to be able to be a part of that, recognizing again that I was actually in the atmosphere where these history makers and these change makers actually breathe in the same place that I did. So it was just beautiful. Thank you for that compliment, Edwin. I appreciate that. I saw that comment about the blue. As we wrap up, any final thoughts about this experience from you, Trent, Michael, or Todd?
I'll say it was it's been amazing. It has truly been amazing. It's been a blessing, first of all, because this is something that wasn't supposed to happen. If you look at the odds that were stacked against us, this film was not supposed to happen, but it did. And it's still happening because of everything that we put into it. Like I honestly think filmmaking, it always goes back to a spiritual thing for me, because we're not just, I don't believe that we're just moving these things. Like this story is doing what it's doing now because it wanted to be told. And this, like so many other stories that are just passed over because people were making these moves all over the South and their stories mattered. So they need to be told and they want to be told. And when they're told the right way, they take on a life of their own. And it's just a beautiful thing just to be a part of it and to have found the perfect cast to bring this to life. Because honestly, I couldn't have seen it with anyone else other than you guys. Like from how you embodied the characters to the special things that you brought to them, like your own unique personalities. It was amazing. And if you haven't seen it, it is now streaming on Amazon Plus, iTunes, and a lot of other streaming sites. Make sure you check it out. Look at this hard work and this passion that we poured into this, and let us know your stories because we're not stopping with this.
Yeah, there's so many stories to be told. Michael, I'll go to you now.
I'll just add real quick, Trenton, thank you for your patience, because when you lost that footage, you could have given up, but you doubled down, you followed through, and not only that, but once you were done and everything was shot, you waited to this project could see the most faces as possible. You waited and you did it right, and that level of patience it's hard to find with filmmakers. You know, sometimes they want their project to get out so bad they just put it on YouTube and then boom, that's it. You know, I really, really, really appreciate the vision and the belief that you had in this project and seeing it through to the end. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks you, man.
Todd, we'll go to Todd and then Sean.
Um, I'd like to say thank you, Trent, and to the rest of the crew, the rest of the production crew. Uh, it was a pleasure working with you all. I would do it again. And like Michael said, your perseverance, your patience is extraordinary. I remember our brief conversations about losing the footage and trying to find someone to get it back. But you know what? he made another way, and we took it. And blessings, and I look forward to more of your work and everyone's work.
We're wrapping it up with you, Sean.
All right. So, Trent, I just want to say, look, uh, you've got a testimony. Absolutely got a testimony. As Michael said, and Todd have said, and Angela, you know, there was something about you when I first met you. So I said, there's something here. There's something here. So I'm telling you that now, just to let you know that this is not over for you. The sky's the limit here. So I think that speaks volumes. As you said and mentioned before, where just 4 years ago you were a SCAD graduate. 4 years ago, and here we are. Fast forward, now you are officially a filmmaker, and you go in the annals of filmmakers from here on until eternity. So I commend you, brother. I wish you well, and there's going to be a lot of projects laid out for you. Just don't forget us.
Definitely not. We all going together. I've been saying this since day one. Like, where this y'all coming? We all are doing this.
No.
Okay. And I would just say again, congratulations, Trent. It was definitely an honor for me to be a part of this project. I appreciate you not only casting me, but deciding that I was good enough to keep for the second round of this project. Definitely appreciate that. And one final question that we got from Edwin, and that question is this. I'd love to hear from you all because I have some stories. But the question is, if you had the financing and resources, what story would you like to bring to the small and big screen? Is there a story that you had? Because I know I have a few of stories that I've just stumbled on in the last few years. And I'm like, I can't believe nobody's told this story. So yeah. Do you have another story? Well, first of all, let me just say that Trent, even though this feature film has been released, Trent has been grinding the past couple of years, knocking out short film after short. Every time I turn around, I'm like, is this another film Trent is shooting? Like, does he sleep? See, Tyler Perry Jr. What is going on? Trent has definitely been busy and building his team because I noticed, you work with, oftentimes you're working with the same DP and the same producers. And so building that family, if you will, that film family. But is there a story, Trent, that if money was no object, you want to bring to the big screen or small screen?
Oh, money was no object. Yeah. There's a sci-fi rom-com that I've been working on for a while. And it's about because I love going into the mindset of people. So it's about the concept of love, because it can happen in so many different ways. But in this film, they're learning that if you love somebody, sometimes you have to let them go. So it's a sci-fi rom-com. If that would be my dream project if money was no option, because it's going to take some sci-fi and things to make it happen. And then I love to take people to the actual places so they can relate to what's going on. So I would say that one.
What about you, Sean?
Well, me? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't have any one particular story. I think there's stories in all of us. If I had the financing, I'd finance a lot had the resources to finance a lot of projects, I would do that. Just and this it's not one story for me, but I just would find that young man, a young woman or older person that's got a story in him or her, and do my best to try to put it to out there to the world. So that's how I look at it. I mean, each one teach one, push things forward.
Absolutely. I will say that I stumbled and I'm not going to share too much because I don't, as I say, I don't want anybody to beat me to the punch before I find the resources. But I did stumble on what I definitely believe is a story about a group of actors that came before the collective, if you will, of Spike Lee. And I use that as an example because, Spike Lee has been very loyal to a lot of his actors. Some of the ones that were in his first films, even the ones that have gotten really big, like the Denzels, Denzel still will work with Spike Lee. And I guess they work out the numbers how they work out the numbers. But even before that, I stumbled on a group of actors who were making movies. And I was like, I actually took a African Americans in film class in college, and I don't ever remember hearing about this group. So I stumbled across that story. I was like, let me put this on the back burner. I might have to do a little bit of research. And then I stumbled on another story. We all have heard this before, this kind of story where, someone becomes famous, doing something, maybe a Elvis Presley, but we find out that all those dance moves he actually got from somebody else on the other side of town in Memphis. And so I stumbled on another story about that with food, where there was this particular entrepreneurial effort that has blown up, but in fact, there was someone who paved the way, if you will. And so I had a brief conversation with this young lady about that story. So yeah, so if financing was, if I hit the lottery tomorrow, I guess I got to play it. But if I hit the lottery tomorrow, who knows, that story, one of those stories may be coming to life. So don't want to take up too much of your time, fellas. I know that you all are definitely busy. This is an interesting time in production because we are still in a pandemic. So things are very different from what we normally do on set these days. But again, thank you both. Thank you to everyone. I know that Michael had to go as well as Todd, but thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with me on the night to talk about Through Her Eyes. Again,
Thank you.
if you have not had an opportunity to do so, you can check out Through Her Eyes, streaming on Amazon Prime, iTunes, and other streaming platforms. Make sure that you check it out. And gentlemen, again, thank you for your time. And I look forward to working with both of you again very, very soon.
Definitely gonna happen. Definitely.
Oh, you heard it here first. These I love when guests come on the show. Like I had on my 100th episode, my sorority sister Takia Krisakima. She said, "You know what? I'm gonna have you on my show for my 100th episode." I said, "Okay, you already told it to my audience. Now you got to stick to it." So yes, I love it when you all come on and share what we're going to do in the future. So again, you all have a great evening.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, so that is it for this Wednesday edition of the Angela Ray Show. Oh, Leslie, thank you so much. This has been an inspiring story to witness, to be a part of. Again, I am so glad that while we were in Alabama, in Selma, as well as Marion, that I had an opportunity to take some video because, yeah, it was definitely a moving time being in Selma as well as Marion. So yeah. So again, thank you all so much for hanging out. What's up, Diane? That's the president of my fan club. I'm not saying I'm that big to have a fan club, but Diane is. She told me a long time ago she was the president of my fan club, so she still gets to keep that honor. So absolutely. Hopefully, we will see you all next week. And as always, I would like to remind you all of Ray of Motivation number 54. Cleaning a mirror does not change the person who is reflected in it. Until next time, I encourage you all to go out and be the change. Have a great evening.